Okay, so today I just posted, some of you should have received it by email or it's in the Blackboard announcements that we have an Excel worksheet that we're going to work through today that I'd like you to pull up. Hopefully if you don't have Excel, you can still pull it up as a worksheet. I'll be screen sharing, but it'd be nice if you guys had it in front of you. So if you go to the Blackboard shell in the announcements, or it should be sitting in your inbox, I just sent it out within the last 10 minutes. So we talked about the mortgage calculator. So that was your assignment for last night. So figuring out these mortgages, which is probably a new thing for you. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that today, but I'm going to relate it to investing in real estate. So let me just kind of start off putting this up here. In fact, actually, let me go to the whiteboard first. Haven't done the old whiteboard here for a little bit. So, so chat box me up here. What is baby step number 4? Baby step number 4. You're going to have all of these off the top of your head for the final. So baby step number 4, who's quick on the draw? Baby step number 1 is a $1,000 emergency fund. Baby step number 2 is pay off all debt except for the house, which is relevant for this chapter. Baby step number 3 is build up your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of expenses. And baby step number 4, no, Xavier, it's not safe for college. That's number 5 is college savings. All right, so Mackenzie's first on the draw, Hannah close second there. So invest 15% of income. So technically Hannah's got the best answer there on the chat box. So 15% of your income is going to, you meant income. Okay, gotcha, Mackenzie. You're going to invest 15% of your income into retirement. And so one of the things you could do is purchase some real estate. So once you guys are debt-free and starting to build up, you might have a house debt. We can kind of picture what your balance sheet or consumer equity sheet, which is again something we need to know for the final. We can look at what that should start to look like. So consumer equity is what Dave called it, consumer equity. But it was your net worth or your wealth. And so chat box me up here. What's the equation for consumer equity in general? So your wealth, how wealthy you are, or your net worth, we kind of use all of those interchangeably. We kind of had a simple formula. This is one of the formulas you need to know for the final. What is consumer equity? Or your net worth or your value. In accounting class, it was owner's equity equals something, which is the accounting way of looking at it, which is fine too. Somebody's not muted, so check your mute button there. All right, good. I like that, Hannah. What you own minus what you owe. So it's the, essentially the dollar value of what you own. Let me try my stylus thing. Where is that thing? All right. I don't know if this is going to work any better than my fat finger. So the dollar value of what you own minus the dollar value of your debts, of what you owe. All right, so basically for all of your assets and liabilities in life, you're going to add those all up. That was what we did way back in chapter 3. And what is baby step number 7? The very last one, baby step number 7. It's the final baby step. There's 7 baby steps. So baby step number 4 was 15% of your income to retirement. Baby step number 5, as Xavier had down, was college savings for kids, if you want to do that. Baby step number 6 is to pay off the house. Just get rid of all debt so that we technically don't have anything we owe, not even a house. And then baby step number 7. Oh, I see it's up there now. Jeffrey got it. Okay, Bill, I'll think my little flasher didn't go off. That's what I was sitting there staring. I have the chat box on a different screen. Okay, so build wealth and give. All right, good. So here's what your life could maybe look like 10 years from now. You've got your student loan debt paid off. You're starting to chug 15% away towards retirement. You're into your job. You might be getting pretty aggressive with that. You've got a spouse or spousal equivalent that you're maybe joint income, making 100 grand a year. And so maybe you get in there and you own a house. And so your personal residence, maybe you go out and buy a, I don't know, $150,000 house. So you have a $150,000 house and you took Dave Ramsey's advice and you put how much down on the chat box for housing? What's his recommended down payment? Minimum down payment? You could have put more. But minimum down payment for a house, $15,000, good. So 10%. So in this case, if it's a $150,000 house, you've got a $15,000 down payment, which means you've got a $135,000 debt. All right. Now, you still are $15,000 to the good. So there's your equity part, right? This is really your money. So in terms of your wealth, you've got a $150,000 house with a $15,000 worth of your own money into it. And hopefully that house will continue to go up in value over time is what we hope for. Now, at the same time, you've been putting 15% of your money towards retirement. Maybe your employer had a 1-for-1 match or something. So you've got some mixture of a 401k and maybe some Roth IRAs. With the coats anyway, and you've been putting it into some cookies of 25% small cap, 25% mid cap, 25% large cap, and so you've got, and 25% international, so you've got these 4 cookies, and right now you've been able to build that up to $80,000. So not doing too bad. You're right on track. You're looking to be a millionaire. You've done kind of the financial calculator. By the time you're 52, you should have $1 million just in these alone, following that path. So now, this chapter, I want to look at real estate. And I'm just going to tell you up front, I disagree with Dave a bit on taking on debt for investment real estate. I'm going to advise you to not go higher than 60% of a loan, which means a 40% down payment. So imagine you go out and you buy a duplex. So part of your 15%, you go out and buy a $100,000 duplex. If you're following the Russ McCullough advice, then you've put $40,000 down and you've got a $60,000 loan. So now what your wealth is looking like is you've got 80,000 here, you've got 15,000 in your own personal residence, so that's 95,000, and then you've got another 40 here. So you have total wealth of 135,000 is where your wealth is at 10 years from now. You've got a job, and if you put that into your financial calculator, this stuff is going to get real nice, and you're going to be very comfortable the rest of your life. All right, any questions so far? All right, so now let me give you a little ammunition of why I think we should not be afraid to take on a little debt with real estate. So let's go to the Excel spreadsheet, which I don't have open yet. Okay, hold on here. That's right, I closed it out for you guys. Okay, so if you guys want to pull it up independently, you can. Either way, you can follow my screen share, but if you pull it up independently, it'll allow you to do some editing yourself. You can change some of the variables and actually play around with it if you want. So here's the scenario I'm setting up. So we've got $100,000 that you're going to invest. And you've got two choices. You could follow the Dave Ramsey system, which isn't bad, by the way, and buy one duplex or one asset, call it asset A, with 100% down payment. So that thing is going to run 100,000. Or you can take the Russ McCullough recommendation here maybe and buy two of them, putting a 50% down payment. So you with me? So you've got 100,000 to invest. You could buy two properties and take a loan out by putting 50,000 down on two, or you just buy one for cash. That's what we're going to be analyzing. So for asset A, the cash required under the Dave Ramsey plan would be 100,000, and then you just buy it and own it outright. Or you're kind of starting to create a portfolio of real estate by having two of them. And so if you do that with the portfolio, you're going to be in this equity position. Now check this out. This is exactly what we were doing before. What I own is $200,000 worth of duplexes. What I owe is $100,000 to the bank, meaning I still have $100,000 to the good. Same thing with the Dave Ramsey plan. You're 100,000 to the good, you have zero debt, so you're still 100,000 to the good. So everybody see we're using the same amount of money for the initial start, but you're able to control two pieces of property instead of one. Is that riskier? Yes. But I'll get into reasons why I think it's not very risky in a little bit. Let me do a 5-second pause for questions. Any questions so far?
Russ, quick question. In chapter 12, it was saying to the down payment, it like fluctuated from 10% to 20%. And he said it was towards to cancel the PMIs.
Yes.
So does that mean whenever it says in the book or for questions, the recommendation, is it still 10% or should we put 20% now to cancel the PMIs?
No, it's 10%. And it's 10% unless the question specifically asks something along the lines of how much would you have to put down to cancel the private, PMI stands for private mortgage insurance. And so then you'd answer it that way. Otherwise, Dave's recommendation is a 10% down.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. Good question. So the reason why, in fact, that's a good spot for me to just kind of comment on the 10% down. The reason why that's a nice place to be is that if real estate prices do go down, you still have some equity. So if you put 3% down on a, I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but if you put 3% down on a $100,000 house, then you took out a $97,000 loan. If you put 10% down, you have a $90,000 loan. Now here's the thing, if the housing prices drop by 8%, your $100,000 house is now only worth $92,000. And so under the Dave Ramsey recommendation, with the $90,000 debt, you still are $2,000 to the good in terms of your wealth. With the more leveraged position, you're $5,000 underwater, right? So with the 92,000 versus the 97, you are 5,000 to the negative. So that's part of the reason with the 10%, it just gives you a little more cushion, a little more flexibility. If you do have to move because of a job change or something, you don't have to worry about it. Also, just a little side thing is if you do have to sell your property in the next year for some reason or another because of a life change, typically you're going to hire a real estate agent to help you sell the house and get the maximum value out of it. And they're going to have a commission, usually somewhere between 5 to 7%. And so that's going to come out of the price. So you are going to have some transaction costs that you have to deal with too. All right, another 5-second pause for questions. Okay, in this next section, we're going to look at the difference of cash flow. So there's really 3 ways that you make money in real estate. You have your money at or 3 phases of the investment, I should say. In fact, I'm going to just shrink this sucker down and give you a little talk on that. So 3 phases of any investment, by the way. So this is kind of a little more general, but I always thought of it this way when I related it to my real estate purchases. But 3 phases of investment. You have the initial investment. So in time period 0 today, I'm going to plunk down $100,000. We call that your initial investment. And then you're going to hold on to the investment for a period of time. And so during that time, you have operating flows. Now you could end up having to put on a roof, and so it's a negative, but hopefully if you have a tenant in your rental property and they're paying you rent and it's higher than your expenses, then you have positive cash flow. So this is really a plus cash flow, which can be negative, but cash flow over this time period. You're out money here, right? Minus 100,000. So we're out 100,000 here. We get some money while we hold it. And then hopefully at the end for retirement, or if you're moving on to some new property, you have what we call a terminal cash flow at the end, terminal cash flow. Let's just call it TCF. And so with the terminal cash flow, you're going to have a sale price, whatever the value of the property's worth. By this time, you might not have any debt on it, but if you did, you'd subtract off the debt, and then you'd have your profit, right, of how much money you made on the property. So that is your 3 phases of really any investment. You give up some money today, you have something going on while you hold it, and then you get rid of it. If you kind of put that frame of mind with any time you're evaluating investment, you can apply this logic to anything. For instance, a classic car. I used to have a 71 Chevelle SS, 354 barrel 4-speed, awesome, muscle car. And I bought it for $2,000. Here was my initial investment. Actually, it was $1,900, I think. And so then you can think about, well, if I hold that, for a period of time, which I ended up selling it a year and a half later, because I wanted to buy my first piece of real estate. Actually, I bought my first duplex when I was 18. So $2,000 and hold it, and it's worth now $24,000 today. Did you put money into it while you held the classic car or not? But we can now analyze that and calculate the rate of return that you made over time. Usually, and this is, we're not going to do those calculations with you guys today, but some of you who are in finance or finance majors, or if you end up taking foundations of finance, you'll be calculating what's called the internal rate of return, which I'm going to show you a little bit of here in a bit. But it's basically the same thing of when we, let me go to the chat box. How much money do we expect to get from our 4 cookies? Putting our money in the right cookies of small cap, mid cap, large cap, international. What's our rate of return we expect to earn over the long run if we're holding those for, you know, at least 10 years? What was our range of rate of return on the chat box? What were we plugging into that investment calculator when we're trying to plan for somebody's retirement or whatever? What was that expected rate of return? All right, yeah, 10 to 12%. In general, I would say 8 to 12%, but 10% is a pretty good number. So that ends up being our alternatives of putting it into the stock market. I will tell you this, if you start getting into real estate, you're going to get into different type of bugaboos. Not everybody's cut out for real estate. You can hire out a manager. That's what I did as a property manager, and you can pay people, but you know, getting a clogged toilet call at 9 o'clock at night, if you end up managing the property yourself, those are things you have to consider compared to just putting it away in your retirement fund. Nonetheless, conceptually, where we're going to make money on real estate then is today we have our own equity. So today we had $100,000. So our $100,000, going back to my example now, we have our $100,000 and we've got $100,000 worth of debt. So our debt payment's at 100. And so over time, our money's going to grow in 3 ways. So with real estate, we hope that over time, so this is time period 0 again, if I make a little timeline here. So we hold it over the years. Over time, I'm gonna make money 3 ways. 1, the property values are going to go up generally. They always have over time historically. So again, kind of like stocks, if you hold on to them long enough and you maintain them properly, they should be going up in value. And then your debt, so this is the value, what you own minus what you owe, you're going to have your tenants paying your rent. And so over time, your debt is going to go down just like our mortgage calculator, right? So that's debt reduction. So we have debt reduction and we got appreciation. So this is appreciation and this is debt reduction. Debt reduction. And at the end, when we sell, like I was saying, our wealth is the difference in this wedge, right? Here's your sale price, and here's your debt. And that might be driven down to 0. And so over time, you started with 100,000 and you ended up with more. All right, 5-second pause for questions. Now we'll kind of crank through the numbers if you got that kind of conceptually. The other thing would be over the hold time, if you had a positive cash flow, that would create some value too, some wealth. All right, here we go. Let's bring this back up to the forefront now. All right, so for our Dave Ramsey method here, we're basically earning a 10% rate of return when we do a simple calculation of the benefit I had over time. So during the hold period, let's say we found a tenant that's paying $1,000 a month, right? So our rent is $1,000 per month. So annually, that was $12,000. And then part of the house expense is taxes and insurance, and maybe there's some other miscellaneous expenses. Let's just say that that was $2,000 for the year, which is at least in the ballpark a decent estimate, since we're kind of just making up numbers here. But just to let you know from my experience, that's not too far off. So we earn a 10% rate of return because we got $10,000 over our $100,000 investment, gives us a 10% rate of return. With the Russ McCullough method here, taking out a 50% loan, not going over 60% is my recommendation. We collect $1,000 per month on 2 properties, and we have a principal and interest payment similar to your mortgage calculator exercise. This is $2,037. So that is the amount of principal and interest calculated off of an 8% interest rate for 20 years. I think towards the bottom of the sheet, I'm not going to move my, my page right now, but I have kind of the specs on that. So now we have a mortgage payment, and we still have our taxes and insurance just like we did under the Ramsey method. So my cash flow per property is less than what the single property was, but I'm really putting that on 50,000. And so at the end of the day, my 2-house combination netted me $16,000 roughly on my $100,000 investment, giving me a 16% rate of return. Okay, pause for questions there. Now, if that doesn't excite you yet, I think this is a good time to go to our investment calculator. And let me see if I can pull up a sheet here. Foundations U. Get rid of my scribbles. How much different would a 16% rate of return do for our portfolio compared to a 10% rate of return? That's the part that might start to get you excited about thinking about real estate. So enter your starting balance. We started with, let's just start with, I'm just going to start with $1,000 just to keep things a little easier. Annual rate of return of 10%. How much do you plan to contribute monthly? Let's just do $500 a month for 40 years, kind of similar to what we've been doing for you guys. And this is going to be a nice number, right? $3.2 million. Crazy to think about, $3.2 million. Now, if we take the same scenario and do 16%, you're not going to believe it. Everybody see that? Can I have some chat box? Wow, or something like that. Like, oh my gosh, that's freaking unbelievable. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I'd be happy with $1 million. I don't need 22 million, or 3 million's fine, right? I mean, we can play these kind of games, but a 16% rate of return is a big deal. And if we tame this down to maybe a 20-year investment, just so we don't get too far out into space, there we go. There's a 20-year investment at 16%, putting $500 a month. Here's 10%. 390. So more than double the rate of return if you can start to squeeze out. Even if I am only getting 13%. Remember, our range for the stock market was 8 to 12. If I get 13%, I go from 390 to 586. So that's a significant amount of money if you can just squeeze out a little bit more rate of return. And I think the question is, you know, is it worth the risk? Is it worth the right amount of that extra that I'm taking on? So let me do a 5-second pause for questions. Okay, so continuing on, here's the 3 pieces that we, let me just, I guess I can move that up right there. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so here's the 3 pieces using actual numbers, and you guys can play around with these numbers. That's why I gave you the Excel spreadsheet. You can change things around if you want. But we have the return on the equity difference that we just highlighted, 10% versus 16%. The asset return on the portfolio. So if we have the duplexes appreciating at 3%, the Dave Ramsey method gives us $3,000 because I only own one of them. Here's where you're getting an extra bang for your buck, is that when you own two of them, now you're getting $6,000 worth of appreciation because each one of them is going up using an appreciation rate of 3%. So now if we combine all of our information between appreciation and the rate of return on the cash flows, the Dave Ramsey method is 10,000 plus the 3,000 of appreciation. And the Russ McCullough method here is 24,000. So the actual rate of return, once you go through the whole scenario, is 24%. And I don't need to go back to the, well, maybe I do need to go back. Just for fun, let's just see what this does to our financial calculator again. Let's see, I guess I calculated out of it. I was hoping it was just sitting there waiting for me to go. $1,000. Let me go back to 10%. 500. 20 years. 20 years. Show the results. There's our 390. And if I go to 20, and I guess in all fairness, it's 13% using the Dave Ramsey method, but 13%. That would be, I guess I should, that's 586 compared to, that's probably not fair. If we're using the stock market, we really should be at 10%. So there's your stock market, 401k, IRA, you've got 390,000. If you have a 24% rate of return, it's $3 million. So making money, getting the higher rate of return, there is additional work, there is additional risk. But, and I wouldn't advise you all going in, 100% into real estate, but that is why you find people in real estate, because there is those sorts of returns are at least possible with proper planning and proper guidance. But something that you have to know about. All right, 10-second pause for questions. You guys look awfully sleepy. I just showed you how you can be multi-millionaires once again, but I'm not seeing a bunch of smiles. I just kind of see sleepy faces and I'm not really sure about this stuff. All right, any comments, questions? All right, so we're gonna do a bunch of review when we get back to Monday, by the way, for the final exam. So that'll be our Monday activity. The next thing we're going to do is jump to your case studies. So if you guys want to open up your case studies. Let's see, case studies, there we go. All right, let's see, we're going to do, all right, let's do Jennifer and Chase. Oh, that's right, I'm in my preview mode. So go to your Jennifer and Chase. I'm not in my, I got to go back to my activities mode here to pull open the activity. All right, here's Jennifer and Chase. Jennifer and Chase have house fever. After searching for 4 months, they believe they found the right house. They're debt-free, have good jobs, and a 20% down payment. However, when they applied for a 15-year fixed-rate mortgage, they were rejected by their bank because they have no credit history. So they got rejected by their bank, because they have no credit history, right? So they've been doing kind of the Dave Ramsey thing. We've talked about this, and you might have a 0 credit score. So what options do they have? And what advice would you do? Why are they a safer risk for the bank than someone has a credit history? So what options do they have when they don't have a credit score? This kind of recaps a little bit from our credit score talk. So just do number 1 only. I'll give you a couple minutes. We're not going to do all of them, by the way. So you just have to do number 1. Because I'm going to go back and hit the other ones too. So what options do they have? And then I'm going to randomly select one of you to unmute and verbalize what you're thinking. So I'll give you a minute here to gather your thoughts. And if you've got your computer open, you can start typing it in. But when I pick you, I just want you to kind of speak from the heart here on what options they might have. And Jeffrey, if you could, since you spoke earlier, give me a number between 7 and 12. And you can unmute or you can chat box it. I don't care, whatever's easier for you. Between 7 and 12. All right, chat box says 11. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11. Hannah is our lucky winner today. So Hannah, why don't you unmute? Tell me what you think. Tell the others what you think on this one. What options?
Could they apply for a different type of loan?
Actually, they would still have a chance to get this loan. They haven't been turned down yet, but they don't have, well, I guess it does say, sorry, it does say they were rejected by their bank because they have no credit history. So yeah, I'll roll with you. So, but they go to the next bank. What should they be thinking about bringing to the bank as evidence that they're credit worthy?
I'd say maybe bills that they've been able to pay back.
Yeah, good. Yep, that was definitely one of them. So look at old phone bills, utility bills, whatever. And then the other thing that they could bring is just some sort of plan that they show that, hey, listen, we don't have any debt. We have a 20% down payment. By the way, this bank would be idiots. What probably would happen is that they might have been rejected from an online application, but any banker would love to have these two. 20% down payment. Remember, from the banker's perspective, they'd be worried about you not making your payments. Well, these two obviously show that they have a good amount of reserves, probably an emergency fund, all of that stuff. They are very credit worthy. And with a 20% down payment, if they default and they quit making their payments, the bank would do a foreclosure and they would get the house back. If the house was worth $100,000 and there was only $80,000 worth of debt, they could literally sell it for, $85,000 minus transaction costs and stuff and still be made whole, right? So they are very, very solid with that, with that 20% down payment. They're very credit worthy. Okay, good. Any last comments on that one? We're going to move on to the next. Okay, let's go to Terrell and Cherie next. So Terrell and Cherie. Terrell and Cherie are newlyweds, and they found a house they want to purchase. However, they need some creative financing to make it work. They've lined up a 30-year mortgage. So they got a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, but need to have a 10% down payment to get a good interest rate. They need to find another loan for the down payment. So we didn't really talk about this in the videos they might have, but so now you could actually kind of have two loans. So, and then Cherie's asked her dad to co-sign, which you might remember Dave's not a big fan of co-signing. So how a double loan system would work is, again, let's go back to the $100,000 house. the bank wants a 10% down payment. And so they would have $90,000 with the bank. And then what Cherie and Terrell are thinking is that, hey, I'll just get a $10,000 loan. Maybe I could even put it on a credit card. And then I'll have the bank loan here and I will have it, right? So credit card, or maybe it's a loan from dad or something like that. So that's what these guys are contemplating. And so I want you to go ahead and do question number 1. Predict the possible outcomes of Terrell and Cherie's position. So what are the kind of the risks and other things? You guys can kind of explain a story that might come to catch. COVID comes to mind, maybe. But, you know, tell Terrell and Cherie, if they're your friends, like, what, you know, I don't think this is a good idea. You guys should not do this. Why don't you rent or whatever, but why? So predict the possible outcomes of Terrell and Cherie's position. By the way, this Terrell and Cherie is very American. Like when I had my real estate license, I dealt with lots of Terrell and Cheries. Like this was fairly common. If we start thinking about how this is different from the Dave Ramsey thing, of course, we wouldn't ever think about co-signing. The down payment, we'd have that 10% being our own cash and never think about borrowing. Baby step number 2, no debt. I guess this is kind of like a house debt, but then you fall back to the 10% rule and they're not following it, right? So you'd always have 10% of your own money that you're putting in. And then Dave also wants a 15-year, which is going to save you all the interest that we did with the over time. Okay, so I'm going to go to my random number generator here and call on somebody. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and let me go back up to the top. 8, 9, 10, 11. Yaniel, you're our lucky contestant today. Number 2 contestant. What are some possible outcomes that you predict for Terrell and Cherie?
She can ask for help with a loan debt and trying to get a house.
Okay, what do you mean ask for help? Like you think she should have her dad help out with a loan or something, or what?
Like her parents trying to help her something.
Yeah. So what do you think?
At least.
Okay. So if they gave her the money for free, you're saying, or is it okay if she got the loan from her parents to get the house?
A loan from her parents.
Loan from her parents. Okay.
Yeah, and then she can pay it like per month or something.
Okay, Yaniel, what is baby step number 2?
Baby step number 2 is I don't remember.
Somebody in the chat box, help out Daniel with baby step number 2. Chat box up, baby step number 2. Stay unmuted, Daniel. We're still going to keep talking this through.
All right.
Pay off all debt, Rachel says. So does Michael. Oh, good. Madrid, everybody's helping you out here. I don't know if you've got your chat box open, but pay off all debt. So if you're following the Dave Ramsey system, which is what you're going to be tested on for your final exam, by the way, next week, should these guys be looking for a loan from dad?
No.
No, that should
They
not
won't,
even be, shouldn't even be on the table. I tell you what, this personal finance stuff gets so much easier when you take that off the table. They probably have to wait, right? I think if this couple wants to buy a house and they want to be smart about it, the simple thing is they're not in position to do it, right? So that should be more of the advice instead of trying to kind of answer the immediate problem like, is it possible for them to buy a house and take on all this debt and do a loan from mom and dad? Absolutely. It's totally possible, but that's not your job as their friend and somebody who has some knowledge about personal finance. The recommendation should be kind of reorganizing things and maybe wait a little bit. Maybe they could be in a position just 6 months from now, who knows? But kind of explain to them how much nicer their life would be and some of the problems that they could avoid. Because if the COVID crisis comes out and the property values go down, now they have a loan to dad, right? So does that make sense, Daniel?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, cool. Any other last comments on that one? Okay. Let me go to this last one, but I'm not going to actually have you guys respond to it. So be ready to unmute. But we got Derek and mortgage options. So Derek is going to graduate from college in 3 months in criminal justice. However, he has a real passion for real estate. He found his dream home. He's got the option of getting a conventional loan or a balloon mortgage. He knows they'll be making more money when the balloon comes due. The monthly payment of a conventional loan is $1,000. The monthly payment with the balloon is only $700, and then it jumps up to $1,300. After his current job, Derek makes enough money to cover a $1,000 mortgage. All right, so what this problem's trying to highlight is one of the mortgages to avoid, which is actually your last video section for this. So don't do balloon mortgages. What Dave is recommending is a 15-year fixed rate loan. Not an adjustable rate, but a fixed rate. With a fixed rate loan, you're going to be able to have a lot of freedom even if the market goes up and down for mortgages. All right, like I said, you guys, I just wanted to point that one out. You don't have to fill in any of the blanks or do that case study for today. And that is it.